So today we're going to be exploring something really super special. We're exploring knitting out from the surface of your hand knit to create pattern, texture, added colour, shapes, forms.
Shape as well, yeah. This idea that Di came up with for the back of the oak, based on a corsetry sort of tradition, you can use to pull the back of the garment.
You can shorten the
strands. You can shorten these.
You can do the impossible because you can interlink and have things.
Yep, up and under, over and of course colour.
And colour. Put colour in. So we knitted the back first for the oak, and I created a framework around with travelling cables. And from beneath each travelling cable, I then picked up 4 stitches underneath and knitted out in a contrast colour the length I required to then knit back into the surface under this cable. So we knitted 4.
Knit 4. Don't cast any of them off.
Leave them live.
Actually, just 4 stitches knitted.
You can do an I-cord.
Can do an I-cord if you want it to be even more tube-like, but it rolls naturally anyway. So, but it's personal choice. So then once you have done your weaving and have the tension that you want, that's really when you pin things in place just a little, just so that they're secure, and then you cast off and just tuck the ends back under the cable, because the other cable is there waiting for them.
So they're all nicely hidden. You can knit it in. You can just knit.
You can
into the stitches underneath as well.
Yeah.
And just like a 3-needle bind off.
And just finish off.
And you can't see a thing.
It's completely invisible on the other side.
Isn't that magic?
It's pretty clever. It's pretty clever. I mean, this is the colour version. This particular one was sharing exhibition space with designs from Chanel and Westwood in Edinburgh a couple of years ago now, and so this one is extra special with the colours, but it's really effective.
And we've worked it on lots of things. We've worked it on long skirts with cabling in a complete contrast colour, working up and all over. And you can do words, you can make knots and sew it back in, so it looks quite mystifying.
This is the latest.
This is a bit super special.
The latest version, which we worked on. I say we. I knitted the background and then Di took over for our retreat that happened just in October there, end of September it was. So just a couple of months ago.
So this was a retreat at the Balcarres estate, which is next to our estate, and they gave us access to some of their incredible bedspreads and
their textiles.
They're
beautiful textiles.
Incredible textiles, including not just textiles but some wallpaper. So here we have one room was papered with the Morris Willow pattern, which we particularly love. I loved. And then I did some drawings from it, went home, put a few ideas down, and then started and drew it up on a chart, which is how I love to work. And rather than keeping it all in the muted colours, I gave it a contemporary twist. So each of these symbols is a different colour. And they're all placed very carefully so they all play off each other.
So
here we have the
that's how it ended up.
beautiful piece that Sheila knitted. And as you can see, I've started to create a 3D knitting out of the surface design on top. There's also a little bit of Swiss embroidery in here, you can see. But
it was embellishment.
It was embellishment weekend, which we love.
Embellishment weekend.
So I'm going to show you now how this works, how you can knit out and create amazing shapes without them showing on the reverse. So first of all, I take a length of the colour that I'm going to make my new leaf shape in. And then I've chosen to make a shape that comes somewhere in here. So I take a finer needle. I usually have 3 double pointed. And I use the smaller one and shorter one. And I choose 2 stitches to start with. As you can see here, I want to have a nice pointy edge where it joins to the branch. So I've chosen 2 stitches, take my length, and I simply slot the yarn on with a little end, knit the first stitch, drop my end for sewing in later, and knit my second stitch. Now, for simplicity, this is the simplest way of knitting out of the fabric, and we'll explore a more complicated way later in another video. This way, I'm only ever going to knit. I'm not going to turn around and purl and come back. So in effect, it's working as an I-cord would work. So to secure it, I'm just going to go back and knit again 1 and 2. So the yarn ends up at the far side and give that end a tug. And I bring it back, move the needle along, ready to start a new row. This time, I'm going to increase because as you can see, the lovely shapes actually go out and then they come back in. So I'm going to knit 1 and pull it through. And then I'm going to pick the thread up between the 2 stitches and I'm going to knit that. That's my made stitch. And then I'm going to knit my 3rd stitch. Then I'm going to pull this back to the beginning and knit a row. Sometimes it gets a little bit tight, that first stitch, but just persist. One, 2, 3. Push back and knit again, another row. And of course, at this point, we're going to think about where this is going within the context of the picture. So I'm now here. I'm going to push back to start again. Knit the first stitch. Then I'm going to pick up from underneath a stitch and I'm going to slot it onto the needle and knit the second stitch with that together, and then the third stitch. Now, that has now anchored it to the knitting below. And I can now think about where I'm going to go next with it. So at this stage, I'm going to come back and do another increase row to 4 stitches because I want to make that nice shape. So I'm coming back, needle in, bringing the yarn back over, knitting a stitch. This time I'm going to make a stitch, being careful not to pick up the under stitch. There we are. Knit one, make one, knit the center stitch, and then make one again. So now we've gone from 3 stitches to 5 stitches. And then always pulling it back along, and I always knit through the row following an increase row. So that's 3, 4, 5. So now my leaf shape, as you can see here, I think I'm actually going to bring it up here and round like that. So I will simply keep increasing, maybe up to 9 stitches, every 4 or 5 rows, just picking up 1, 2 below stitches and attaching them in, knitting them in with the surface knit. And that way I can move the shape around to the very end. There I decrease down until I got 2 stitches left, cast off and sew in.